Sonic Racing CrossWorlds has been at Gamescom, and it showed a lot more gameplay and stuff you'll be able to do in the game, and some brand new tracks with the inclusion of a third DLC pack centered on Pac-Man. The game releases on September 25th with 3 days early access to people who purchase the digital deluxe edition. However, that same week is also the release of the long-awaited remake of Pac-Man World 2, which releases a day later. It got me thinking about every time there's been a big release at the same time as a Sonic game. How many Sonic games have released at the same time as a big game, and which ones were more successful? Let's find out. The thought came to me during editing my reaction video on the Nintendo Partnership Showcase Direct. In the video, I mentioned that the release date for Pac-Man World 2 Re-PAC being basically the same time as Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. So it makes me wonder, do Sonic games have a release date curse? Something releasing at the same time as something else is very common, especially in this day and age. One of the biggest examples in recent years was the release of the movies Barbie and Oppenheimer. Barbie was the film with the bigger box office, but Oppenheimer still had pretty good results, which became the third highest grossing film of 2023 under the Super Mario Bros. Movie and obviously Barbie. The film received more rewards during award season, including Best Picture at the 2024 Oscars. It happens all the time in movies and of course video games. In fact, 2023 saw a similar thing in October that year with the releases of Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Sonic Superstars. Superstars got a couple days to themselves on October 17th, with Marvel Spider-Man 2 and Mario Wonder on October 20th. The results on both games were amazing. Spider-Man 2 was one of the most anticipated games at the time and one of the big games of the PS5. The game itself did receive a mixed reaction on the other hand, but the success speaks louder to executives. Marvel Spider-Man 2 made over 11 million copies, marking as the fastest selling PS5 exclusive, many getting their console just for the game. I was one of those people. Then there's Mario doing as well as a Mario game should, both critically and financially, with the game selling over 16 million copies, and even became the fastest selling Mario title to date. Sonic Superstars on the other hand, the game had a mixed reaction. It did sell over 2 million copies, but a little bit after the game's release, Sega considered it a bit of a flop. It's odd when someone admits to something of this scale. Normally people would just want to avoid that kind of topic. Not Sega, apparently. Last year we had Sonic X Shadow Generations released on October 25th, not counting the 3 days early access on the 22nd. The game was very well received, being one of the highest rated Sonic games to release since Sonic Mania. The game did really well financially across all platforms. Its competitor, however, was Call of Duty Black Ops 6. While a game nobody really asked for except for the executives over at Activision, they saw the big dollar bills and the Call of Duty games still do well despite what many think of the games nowadays having been an annual release franchise. I couldn't find how many copies were sold on Black Ops 6, however, I did see that with the game's release, it had the whole franchise surpass 500 million copies. It's honestly insane to know something like that, but it would probably take a while to go through every game to know the exact number of copies Black Ops 6 sold. We do know that Sonic X Shadow Generations, on the other hand, sold over 2.5 million copies, which is pretty good. In 2011, Sonic Generations came out celebrating the franchise's 20th anniversary, very critically well received for its mixture of classic Sonic and modern Sonic gameplay, and being a celebration of the franchise's history. The game sold a little under 2 million copies, but either way was still really great. The game released on November 1st in the US and November 4th in Europe, and its competitor, Naughty Dog, released Uncharted 3, one of the most anticipated games of that year. It received raving reviews as one of the best games of 2011 and sold over 9 million copies. Truly incredible. If you haven't noticed a theme here, games that aren't Sonic seem to sell more copies, whereas Sonic stays within the 1 or 2 million range. Sonic is a bit more of a niche kind of series. Thankfully it does have the release of the movies and all the merch the series gets, so there's that at least. It's grown from its original days as one of the biggest gaming icons and one of the stars of the 90s.
Was there ever a Sonic game that was bigger than another game that released at the same time? Well, I may have found one, but it was only slightly.
That'll be 2022's Sonic Frontiers. Of all the Sonic games we've had over the years, Frontiers stood out to many casual gamers for its open world gameplay and combat. People who didn't care that much about most Sonic games actually had a lot of interest playing the game, and many who's played Sonic games would have Frontiers as a game to test among other games in the series, and Frontiers got the biggest praise. It helps when the game took its time a bit more and had inspiration of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild among other open world games like it. The game was decently received by critics, averaging a 7 out of 10 most often, and the game would sell over 3.5 million copies, which was amazing to hear in comparison to other games being around a million. So what was the major game that was released at the same time? Return to Monkey Island. Okay, not a game one would have expected to be considered here, but both games released on the same day, so that's got to account to something, right? How many copies did Monkey Island get? 3 million. Yeah, it's a 0.5 million difference between that and Frontiers, but hey, that's a win in my book. Hear me out on this next one. As many know, multiple Sonic games get released a year, either a main series or spin-off titles. It's to be expected with a name as big as Sonic. It's just like there's always a Mario game of sorts every year, either main series or spin-off titles. But has there ever been more than one Sonic game released at the same time that did better over the other? Well, depending on how far apart they were from their release, since one could make the argument for 2010 with Sonic 4 Episode 1 and Sonic Colors being a month apart from each other. Sonic 4 Episode 1 selling over 1 million copies, while Sonic Colors sold over 4 million copies, and that's not including the Colors Ultimate release from 2021. There is, however, a time when 3 Sonic games came out at the exact same time. In 2006, for the 15th anniversary of the franchise, Sonic 06, Sonic Genesis for the Game Boy Advance, and Sonic Rivals all released in the same week, with 06 and Rivals being the same day on November 16th. The quality for each game speaks for themselves, with 06 having somewhat of a cult following, some forgetting Rivals existed with it being exclusive to the PSP, and I wish I could forget Sonic Genesis. Sonic 06, while received negatively, had sold over 2 million copies, as at the time it was highly anticipated of a release, only to become one of gaming's and the franchise's biggest disappointments. At least now it has somewhat of a following from those that enjoyed it. The fan-made projects to make the definitive experience of the game, such as the Sonic Generation stage mod, Project 06, a fan remake of the game on Unity that shows the full potential of what the original game could have been, and more. As of this video, there's a recompiled PC port in the works, which is very exciting, as 06 was another game like Sonic Unleashed considered for PC that never got that. So now this is its chance, and I bet the modding scene is gonna be insane. I'm honestly excited for the port when it comes out. Now, what about Rivals and Genesis? Well, I couldn't find any results on Genesis because all the results kept telling me about the original Mega Drive release of Sonic 1. So there's no definitive answer on it, but if I was to guess, I don't think it's sold very well. The GBA was being phased out for the DS, we had Sonic Rush already out and more games to come by that point, so chances are either people didn't care for a GBA port of Sonic 1, or they just didn't know about it until people online started talking about it. Plus, with all the research I've done, the game seemed to have only released in America, so there's no Japanese or European versions. If you see a copy somewhere that looks Japanese or European, chances are it's a bootleg. There's quite a few of them. Finally, we have Rivals. While I don't know how many people that played Rivals or knew the game existed, from everything I can find online, the game was considered a success. I could only find the amount of copies sold in the US being over 250k, which is pretty low, not gonna lie, but the game would get repackaged with the greatest hits releases, so I guess that counts as something? Of course, I have to talk about the Sonic movies and their competitions. It wouldn't feel right if I didn't. It wasn't much for the first 2 movies, but you know us Sonic fans, when we see Sonic have more success than something else, we take that W and brag about it until we move on to the next thing. For Sonic Movie 1, there wasn't a whole lot of competition. Most films tend to release films near busier times, such as when schools are closed for some sort of holiday. Before the redesign of Sonic, the film was originally meant to release on the 8th of November in the US, around the same time as DC's Joker film, and pretty close to when Disney's Frozen 2 was coming out in time for Thanksgiving, which is usually pretty traditional for Disney to do. In the UK, the film wouldn't have released until December 26, which was outrageous, honestly. and would have lost to Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker and the 2 people that went to see the Cats movie. But due to the backlash of Sonic's original design from both fans and casuals, which many have now deemed as Sonic fans cyberbullying, yet everyone hated it, the film got delayed to February 14th of 2020 to redesign Sonic. With the new release date, the film's competition instead became Harley Quinn, the Birds of Prey movie from Warner Bros. And DC, which released a week before. The film flopped due to not reaching its audience due to the film's age rating, and honestly, most people didn't know the movie existed, or because DC's stay at the time after films like Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, and 2017's cut of Justice League, many would just skip on it. Sonic releasing a week later in time for the UK's half-term week of Valentine's, plus Sonic appealing more to kids than Harley Quinn would. Sonic Movie 1 was a huge success, becoming at the time the fastest opening weekend for a video game movie, surpassing Detective Pikachu, which was little under a year beforehand. The film did unfortunately lose its steam, which was partially because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and cinemas having to shut down, but the film was a success, regardless. Fast forward to 2022 with Sonic Movie 2. The release date for this one was so strange. It was released in the UK and some other places on April 1st, and the US didn't get the film until a week later? That was the case for a few films at the time for some reason. Only one movie stayed consistent with the release date between other regions, at least in the US and UK, and that was Morpheus. Shut up. It's not funny. It never was. Anyways, Sonic 2 beat Morpheus by a landslide. That's 2 superhero films now that Sonic has surpassed. Although, there was some other competitions. We also have the 3rd Fantastic Beasts movie, The Secrets of Dumbledore, though the gross for the box office was only by a little bit compared to Sonic. But if you look at the domestic box office, Sonic won easily. Even another movie released around the same time did better than Fantastic Beasts, The Bad Guys from DreamWorks. While the worldwide gross isn't much to write home about, domestically, it did better than Fantastic Beasts by a little bit, so still a win. Finally, we have the big one, Sonic 3 and Mufasa the Lion King. Both movies releasing on December 20th of 2024, 21st for the UK and the 26th for most parts of Europe. Sonic had an advantage with loads of marketing, the trailers for Mufasa had a series of dislikes across the board, and Disney, from what I saw, did very little to no marketing and solely relied on the name of The Lion King and it being a prequel to the 2019 remake of The Lion King. Sonic was destined to win. Mufasa earned over 722 million worldwide, while Sonic 3 only earned just under 500 million. Even if we look at the domestic and international gross, Mufasa wins either way. It was a pretty heated topic while both movies were in cinemas, but after some time, some people did point out that they did see a decent amount of marketing from Mufasa, and of course, The Lion King is one of Disney's biggest franchises, and most families will have wanted to see Mufasa over Sonic. A brand like Disney is considered more trusted compared to Sonic. Everyone can say what they want about Disney as a whole, but regardless if there's a movie they make and it gets the attention either as fans or something to remind them of their childhood, chances are they're gonna go see that over a 3rd film installment to a long-running video game franchise. As much as I wanted Sonic 3 to do better, even trying to convince people in my circle to go see Sonic 3 over Mufasa, it's a fate I had to accept. Sonic 3 did at least get the bigger opening weekend, which is something, I guess. There's definitely going to be more examples of Sonic games releasing at the same time as another game. Same even goes for the next Sonic movie. It seems to be very common, just like it is releasing for anything in general. If this video does well and you guys in the comments can point out more games releasing at the same time as a Sonic game, I would definitely consider a part 2. Now this year's battle will be with Pac-Man World 2 Re-PAC on September 16th, and Sonic Racing CrossWorlds only a day before. Not only those, but when double checking release dates for games, there's also Silent Hill F, about 6 days beforehand. There's also Dying Light the Beast releasing. It seems Sonic just can't catch a break and have his time to himself to release a game, just like some games releasing on his birthday. That's a whole other video right there. We're not going to know the outcome of either games releasing alongside CrossWorlds, but I'm on the side that thinks CrossWorlds will be a decent success. Who knows, maybe they'll delay the game last minute, or the other games will get delayed. Not likely at this point, but only time will tell. So what do you guys think? Do you think Sonic games need a new strategy for releasing games or up the marketing some more? Do you know any other Sonic games that released at the same time as another big game, and how many copies were sold? Let me know in the comments, and if I get enough responses, I'll make a part 2. But with that said, thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on my Blue Sky accounts. Thank you to my patrons, Typhoon and Andres, much appreciated. If you want your name at the end of the videos, make sure you hit the link in the description to either my Patreon or my YouTube membership. And with that said, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.